The morning light filtered through my kitchen window as I reached for the phone, my heart full of anticipation. Today I would finally ask Daniel about his wedding date, my only son getting married. I'd been waiting weeks for this conversation, already imagining myself in the beautiful lavender dress hanging in my closet, the one I'd spent 3 weeks searching for. But before I could dial, Sarah, my daughter-in-law, caught my eye from across the room. Her smile was sharp, calculated, like broken glass reflecting sunlight. "Actually, Margaret," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness, "we got married 2 days ago. It was very exclusive, only the most important people in our lives." The words struck me like a physical blow. Important people. For 4 years, I had been their safety net. Every month, without fail, I transferred $600 for their rent. When their apartment needed furnishing, I bought every piece: the couch, the dining table, the bedroom set. When their refrigerator stood empty, I filled it. When Sarah's car broke down, I paid the $1,800 repair bill without hesitation. 4 years of sacrifice, 4 years of believing I was investing in family, 4 years of being their financial lifeline, and I wasn't important enough for their wedding. I stood frozen in my own living room, the phone feeling like lead in my hand. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes, suddenly fascinated by his shoes, the Italian leather ones I'd given him for his birthday. Sarah settled comfortably onto the sofa I'd purchased, crossing her legs with the confidence of someone who'd just delivered a perfectly aimed insult. The pale lavender dress mocked me from my closet. $230 I'd spent, imagining myself in wedding photos that would never include me. The matching shoes sat beside it, unworn, unnecessary. For 2 months I'd been planning, setting aside $1,200 as their wedding gift, calling my sister Victoria in Seattle to share the excitement, deep cleaning my house, thinking they might celebrate here afterward. All of it meant nothing. It was intimate. Daniel finally managed, his voice rehearsed and hollow. Just us and the legal witnesses. Very simple, but I knew better. I'd seen the photos on social media, the ones they hadn't bothered to hide from me. Sarah's parents beaming beside the newlyweds, her 3 siblings raising champagne glasses, her best friend in a bridesmaid dress, Sarah herself in a flowing white gown, the one funded by the $900 I'd given her for personal expenses the previous month. I saw everything I was never meant to see. What would you do if the people you sacrificed everything for treated you like a stranger? Could you find the strength to say enough is enough? 7 days. That's how long it took for them to remember I existed. 7 days of silence after the humiliation. 7 days of me replaying that moment over and over. Only the most important people, while I tried to understand how I'd become so invisible to my own child. Then my phone rang with Sarah's number, and instantly I knew. This wasn't a call to apologize. This wasn't my son finally finding the courage to explain. This was need. This was always about need. "Margaret," Sarah's voice trembled with manufactured urgency. "We have a serious problem. The landlord is threatening eviction. The rent is 3 weeks overdue. You forgot to make the transfer, and now he says if we don't pay by Friday, we're out on the street." Forgot. As if my absence was merely an oversight, a simple mistake to be corrected. I let the silence stretch between us, remembering all those frantic trips to the bank, all those times I'd rearranged my own bills to make sure theirs were covered, all those meals of instant noodles and canned soup so I could give them money for restaurants and entertainment. "Margaret, are you there? This is urgent. We could lose everything." "Sarah," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I didn't forget. I made a conscious choice." "What? What are you talking about? I only help people who consider me important." "You made it very clear I don't qualify." The silence that followed was profound. For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't the one desperately trying to fill the quiet with reassurances and promises of help. "Margaret, you're being unreasonable," she finally stammered. "I don't understand. We've always been important to you. I've always treated you like my own mother." The lie was so blatant, so rehearsed, it almost made me laugh. A bitter, painful laugh that I kept locked inside. When? I asked simply. When did you treat me like family? When you excluded me from your wedding? When you only call when you need money? When was the last time you asked how I was doing, Sarah? Not what I could do for you, just how I was. That's not fair. Life isn't fair. You taught me that 2 days ago. I heard Daniel's voice in the background, urgent and angry. Sarah covered the phone, but I could still hear the muffled argument. Money. They were arguing about money, about me as a source of money, not as a person, not as Daniel's mother. Margaret, please. Sarah's voice returned, now edged with desperation. We made a mistake with the wedding. Daniel wanted you there. I was just stressed and made a bad decision. We can fix this. But right now, we need— What you need, I interrupted, is to figure out your own lives. I'm done being your ATM. I ended the call and turned off my phone completely. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or sadness. It was adrenaline. It was power. It was the beginning of something I should have done years ago. Have you ever realized that the people taking from you would never be satisfied, no matter how much you gave? What happened when Margaret finally stopped giving changed everything. I couldn't sleep that night. Not from regret or second thoughts, but from a burning need to know the truth in numbers. How much had I actually given them? How much of my life, my security, my late husband's legacy had I poured into their bottomless well of needs? At dawn, I sat at my kitchen table with 4 years of bank statements spread before me like evidence at a crime scene. My reading glasses perched on my nose, a calculator beside my coffee cup, and a growing sense of nausea in my stomach. The numbers told a story I'd been refusing to read. Monthly rent, $600 times 48 months equals $28,800. But it wasn't just rent. There were the emergencies that appeared with clockwork regularity. Sarah's dental work that insurance wouldn't cover, $1,200. Daniel's professional wardrobe for his important job interview, $800. The security deposit when they moved apartments, $1,200. Car insurance premiums when they were temporarily short, $450 3 times. The engagement ring I'd helped finance, $2,000. Furniture for their first apartment, $3,400. Groceries during their rough patches, approximately $300 monthly, totaling $14,400. Medical bills, $1,600. Car repairs, $2,800. Their honeymoon that I hadn't been told about until after, $1,500. Birthday gifts, Christmas presents, anniversary dinners, $4,200. The calculator displayed the final sum, $61,150. I stared at that number until the digits blurred. That was nearly half of everything my husband Richard had left me when he died 6 years ago. Money he'd saved carefully, worked overtime to accumulate, invested wisely so I could live comfortably in my retirement. "Take care of yourself, Maggie," he'd whispered in the hospital. "Promise me you'll enjoy life, travel, buy things that make you smile. Don't just exist, live." Instead, I'd spent his legacy buying my son's affection, or trying to. The morning sun climbed higher, and still I sat with my evidence. I thought about the cruise to Alaska I'd postponed, twice. The art classes I'd wanted to take but couldn't afford after sending money for Sarah's emergency root canal. The new roof my house desperately needed, delayed because Daniel's car had needed a transmission. My phone, which I'd finally turned back on, showed 17 missed calls, 14 from Sarah's number, 3 from Daniel's. No voicemails asking if I was okay, no messages saying they were worried about me, just texts. "Mom, call us. This is serious. We need to talk now. You're being childish. The landlord is coming tomorrow. Not one 'I love you,' not one 'I'm sorry,' not one acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, they'd hurt me." I picked up my phone and composed a message to my bank. Cancel all automatic transfers to Daniel Foster's account, effective immediately. Then I called my attorney, Howard Mitchell, someone Richard had trusted implicitly. "Howard," I said when he answered, "I need to talk to you about protecting my assets, and I need to change my will, today, if possible." There was a pause. "Margaret," Is everything all right?" "No," I answered honestly, "but it's going to be—" Margaret had finally seen the truth in black and white, but knowing the cost was one thing, taking action was another. What she did next would change everything, but would she have the courage to follow through? Howard Mitchell's law office smelled of leather and old books, the scent of security and wisdom. I'd been here 6 years ago to handle Richard's estate, never imagining I'd return to protect myself from my own child. "Margaret," Howard said, settling behind his massive oak desk, "tell me everything." So I did. The whole story poured out. The secret wedding, the years of financial support, the $61,150, the 17 calls demanding money but never offering love. Howard listened without interruption, his experienced face growing grimmer with each detail. "What you're describing," he said finally, "is textbook elder financial abuse. It's more common than people realize, and it's devastating because the abusers are people you love." Elder abuse. The words hit me like ice water. I'd thought of myself as generous, maybe too generous. But abused? That word belonged to other people's stories, not mine. "They're going to escalate," Howard continued. "They've lost their income source. People in that position become desperate, and desperate people do dangerous things." "What kind of things?" "They might try to have you declared mentally incompetent, claim you're being manipulated by outsiders, meaning me and anyone else who supports your decision. They'll present you as confused, paranoid, unable to manage your affairs." My stomach turned cold. They can do that. They can try. That's why we're going to document everything, starting now. I want you to write down every incident, every demand for money, every time they made you feel guilty or afraid. We'll also arrange for a comprehensive medical and psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Elena Foster, no relation to your son, to establish your complete mental competence. For 3 hours we worked. Howard changed my will, removing Daniel as executor and primary beneficiary. He set up a trust with strict protections. We documented my financial history with Daniel and Sarah. He drafted a formal letter establishing boundaries, all future communication through his office only. "One more thing," Howard said. "Change your locks." "Today? They have keys to your house, don't they?" I nodded, embarrassed I hadn't thought of it myself. "People who've been stealing from you financially often feel entitled to access your property. Don't give them the opportunity." When I left Howard's office, I felt simultaneously empowered and terrified. I was protecting myself, yes, but from my own son. How had it come to this? My phone rang. Daniel this time, not Sarah. My thumb hovered over the answer button. 4 years of conditioned response told me to answer, to fix whatever was wrong, to be the solution to his problems. I let it go to voicemail. This time, he actually left a message. "Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this needs to stop. Sarah is crying. We might lose our apartment. Whatever we did to upset you, I'm sorry, okay? Just call me back. We need you. We need you. Not I love you, not I miss you, not I'm ashamed of how we treated you. We need you." I saved the voicemail. Howard had said to document everything. Next stop, Anderson's Hardware. The owner, Tom Anderson, had known Richard and me for 20 years. When I asked for his best locks, he didn't ask questions, just recommended heavy-duty deadbolts and a simple security system. "Tom," I said as he rang up the purchase, "do you install these, or should I hire someone?" "I'll come by myself tomorrow morning, Margaret." No charge for labor. Richard was a good friend. That kindness from a near stranger nearly broke me. Here was Tom offering help because he respected my late husband's memory, while my son couldn't bother to invite me to his wedding. When I got home, I walked through my house seeing it differently. This wasn't just where I lived. It was my fortress, my sanctuary, and I was taking it back. I started in Daniel's old bedroom, which I'd kept exactly as he'd left it. Baseball trophies on the shelf, posters on the walls, his twin bed made with his favorite blue comforter, a shrine to a boy who no longer existed, if he ever had. Time to reclaim this space. Margaret was building walls, but were they to keep Daniel out or to protect what was left of herself? And when he finally showed up at her door, would those walls be strong enough? I woke to pounding on my front door at 7:30 a.m. Aggressive, demanding pounding that made my windows rattle. Before I could even get my robe on, I heard the sound that made my blood freeze, a key turning in the lock. My old locks, the ones Tom hadn't replaced yet. They were in my house. I rushed downstairs to find Daniel, Sarah, and a man I didn't recognize standing in my living room like they owned it. The stranger wore an expensive suit and carried a leather briefcase. His smile was professional, calculated, cold. "Mom, thank God," Daniel said, though his tone carried more anger than relief. "We've been trying to reach you for days. Get out of my house." My voice came out stronger than I felt. "All of you." "Margaret," Sarah stepped forward, her expression a mask of concerned sympathy. "We need to talk about what's happening. You're not acting like yourself. I've never been more myself in years. Leave. Now." The stranger cleared his throat. "Mrs. Foster, I'm Gregory Chen, a family law attorney. Your son and daughter-in-law have asked me to assess your current situation. They're concerned about your mental well-being and your recent erratic behavior." Mental well-being. Erratic behavior. The words Howard had warned me about. "Mr. Chen," I said, walking to my phone, "I'm calling my attorney and the police. You have 30 seconds to leave my property before I press charges for breaking and entering." "Mom, stop being dramatic," Daniel snapped. "This is serious. You cut us off without explanation. You won't answer calls. You're acting paranoid and hostile. We think you might be experiencing cognitive decline." "Cognitive decline?" The phrase came out as a laugh. "Because I stopped being your personal bank?" Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through something. "We have documentation, Margaret. Times you forgot to transfer rent money, bills you supposedly paid but didn't, signs of confusion and memory loss." I didn't forget anything. I chose to stop. "See?" Sarah looked at Mr. Chen meaningfully. "She admits she stopped paying bills she'd committed to. That shows impaired judgment." "It shows excellent judgment," I interrupted. "Now get out before I call 911. But Mr. Chen was already spreading papers across my coffee table that I'd bought with my money. "Mrs. Foster, we've prepared some documents that would help streamline your financial management. A power of attorney giving Daniel authority to manage your accounts, just temporarily, until you're feeling more like yourself." He was actually trying to get me to sign away control of my money, in my own home, after breaking in. I dialed Howard's number with shaking fingers. "Howard." "They're in my house. Daniel, Sarah, and a lawyer named Gregory Chen. They broke in with old keys. Yes, I'm safe. No, don't call the police yet. Just get here fast." Daniel's face shifted from concerned son to something darker. "You've got your own lawyer now? Who's been putting ideas in your head? These neighbors you've suddenly become friends with? That woman next door?" "The only people who put ideas in my head," I said coldly, "are you and Sarah. Ideas like, my mother is only valuable for her money. That's not fair." "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been an invitation to your wedding. Fair would have been respect, gratitude, basic human decency. Instead, you're breaking into my home trying to steal my assets through legal manipulation." Sarah's eyes welled with tears, practiced, perfect tears. "How can you say we're stealing? We're family. Everything you have will be ours eventually anyway. We're just trying to help you manage it while you still can." There it was, the truth she'd been hiding behind false sweetness. To her, to both of them, I was already dead. They were just collecting their inheritance early. Get out of my house. Mr. Chen began gathering his papers. "Mrs. Foster, this doesn't have to be adversarial. Your family loves you." "My family loves my money. There's a difference." Through the window, I saw Howard's BMW racing down my street, followed by a police car. Thank God he'd called them anyway. Daniel saw them too. His expression crumbled from anger to something almost like panic. "Mom, please." "The landlord gave us 3 days. If we don't pay by Friday, we're evicted. We'll lose everything. Our furniture, Sarah's clothes, all of it. Please, just this one last time." No. That single word, 2 letters, felt like lifting a crushing weight off my chest. Howard burst through my still-open door, followed by 2 police officers. Margaret had said no, but saying it and surviving the consequences were 2 different things. What happened next would test everything she'd learned. The police report took an hour. Breaking and entering, even with old keys that should have been returned, was still illegal entry when I'd explicitly told them to leave. Officer Patricia Rodriguez was patient, thorough, and surprisingly supportive. "Mrs. Foster," she said quietly while her partner interviewed Daniel outside, "I see this a lot. Adult children who view their parents as resources instead of people. You did the right thing calling us." After they left, Daniel and Sarah escorted to their car with a warning. Howard and I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee neither of us wanted. "They're going to sue you for guardianship," Howard said bluntly. "That lawyer, Gregory Chen, specializes in these cases. He's got a reputation for winning, too." "How?" "I'm clearly competent. I manage everything myself. They'll create a narrative. Say you've changed dramatically. Paint your new friendships as manipulation by strangers. Claim you're isolating yourself, showing paranoid behavior, making irrational financial decisions. They'll find a psychiatrist willing to testify that cutting off your family shows impaired judgment. That's insane. That's profitable. For them and for lawyers like Chen. Adult guardianship is a billion-dollar industry, Margaret. Once they get control, they can drain your accounts legally, sell your house, put you in a facility, all while claiming it's for your own good." The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. "So what do? We fight back. First, you're seeing Dr. Elena Foster tomorrow." "The one you mentioned?" "She's the best geriatric psychiatrist in the state. She'll do comprehensive cognitive testing, evaluate your mental status, and provide testimony if needed. Second, we're filing for a restraining order. Third, we document everything, every text, every call, every threat." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mom, it's me on Sarah's old phone. Please, we need $3,600 by Friday or we're homeless. Just one more time. I'm begging you." "Daniel," I showed it to Howard. "Document it," he said, "and don't respond." But oh, how that message hurt. Not because I felt guilty, I was past that, but because it confirmed that even now, his first thought was money, not relationship, not "I'm sorry," not "I love you," not "I was wrong." Just, "Give me $3,600. Tom Anderson arrived at 9 a.m. to install the new locks. While he worked, my neighbor Ellen knocked on the door, a woman I'd barely spoken to before, though we'd lived next to each other for 15 years. "Margaret?" "I hope I'm not intruding. I heard shouting this morning and wanted to make sure you're okay." Something about her genuine concern broke through my defenses. "Ellen, do you have time for coffee?" For the next 2 hours, I told her everything. Ellen listened without judgment, occasionally nodding like she understood something I didn't yet see. 6 years ago, she said finally, my daughter tried the same thing. Adult guardianship, incompetency claim, the works. She'd gotten into debt and decided my retirement savings were the solution. What happened? I hired a good lawyer, got documented by doctors, and cut her off completely. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. For 8 months, she told everyone I was senile, being manipulated, needed help. But eventually, when the money stopped, she had to fix her own life. Did she ever apologize? 2 years later, yes, we have a relationship now, not the one I imagined, but one based on honesty instead of money. But Margaret? Ellen's expression turned serious. Some adult children never change. You have to be prepared for that possibility. Margaret was learning she wasn't alone, but she was also learning the fight ahead might cost her the last shreds of the family she'd dreamed of. Could she survive losing her son completely? Dr. Elena Foster's office was nothing like I expected. Warm colors, comfortable furniture, windows overlooking a garden, no sterile white walls or intimidating medical equipment. Dr. Foster herself was a petite woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Margaret, I've reviewed your file and the situation Howard described. I want you to know this evaluation is as much for you as it is for legal documentation. Many people in your position question themselves. Wonder if maybe they are being irrational. Sometimes I do wonder, I admitted. Am I crazy for cutting off my own son? Let's find out together. This will take about 3 hours. I'll be testing memory, cognition, reasoning, emotional state, and decision-making capacity. Ready? The testing was exhausting. Memory exercises where I recalled lists of words after delays, math problems of increasing complexity, pattern recognition, logical reasoning scenarios, questions about my daily life, my routines, my relationships. Margaret, Dr. Foster said during one segment, I'm going to describe a situation, and I want you to tell me what you think about it. A 70-year-old woman has been giving her adult son $600 monthly for 4 years. The son gets married without inviting her, then calls needing more money. She decides to stop giving financial support. Is this woman showing good judgment or impaired judgment? That's my situation. I know, answer anyway. I thought carefully. Good judgment. The son has demonstrated that the relationship is transactional, money in exchange for contact. Continuing to fund that would be enabling unhealthy behavior. The woman is protecting her resources and her dignity. Dr. Foster made notes. What if the son claims she's being manipulated by new friends? Then the son is deflecting from his own behavior. He's trying to explain away her autonomy by claiming someone else is controlling her. It's another form of manipulation. Interesting. Tell me about these new friends. Did they encourage you to cut off Daniel? No. Ellen shared her similar experience, but she never told me what to do. Mostly, she just listened and confirmed I wasn't crazy for feeling hurt. More tests, more questions. Finally, after 3 hours, Dr. Foster set down her pen. Margaret, you're going to be relieved to hear this. You're not just competent. Your cognitive function is excellent for any age. Your memory is sharp. Your reasoning is clear. Your emotional responses are appropriate. The decision to stop financial support for Daniel and Sarah shows sound judgment, not impairment. Relief flooded through me so intensely I almost cried. In fact, Dr. Foster continued, I'd argue that continuing to fund their lifestyle despite clear emotional abuse would indicate poorer judgment. You recognized an unhealthy pattern and took steps to protect yourself. That's exactly what a cognitively healthy person should do. Can you put that in writing? For the court? Absolutely. I'll prepare a comprehensive report. And Margaret, I've evaluated people with actual dementia, actual cognitive decline. You're nowhere near that. Anyone claiming otherwise is either incompetent themselves or lying for personal gain. When I left her office, I felt vindicated in a way I hadn't known I needed. A medical professional had confirmed what I'd been afraid to trust, that I was right, that my judgment was sound, that protecting myself wasn't selfishness or confusion. Howard was waiting in his car outside. How did it go? She says I'm cognitively excellent. I knew you would be. Now let's use that report to make Daniel and Sarah very nervous about proceeding with their lawsuit. But as we drove back, my phone exploded with messages. Not from Daniel or Sarah, from my sister Victoria in Seattle, my cousin James, even my old friend Barbara from church, all saying the same thing. I heard you're having memory problems. Daniel called very worried. Is it true? Do you need help? They'd started a whisper campaign, spreading lies about my mental state to everyone who knew me. Dr. Foster had given Margaret medical proof of her competence, but Daniel and Sarah were playing a different game, one of public opinion and damaged reputation. How do you fight lies when people want to believe them? I called Victoria back immediately, my hands shaking with anger. Vicky, what exactly did Daniel tell you? My sister's voice was cautious, worried. Maggie, he said you've been acting strange for months, forgetting things, getting confused, making irrational decisions. He's worried about you. We all are. What else did he say? That you've cut him off financially without explanation, that you've been influenced by new friends who might be taking advantage of you, that you need help, but you're refusing it. Maggie, is any of this true? So I told her the real story, the secret wedding, the $61,150, the breaking and entering, the attempted power of attorney. Victoria listened in growing silence. That bastard. she whispered finally. "That absolute bastard. He called me crying, Maggie. Actual tears. Said he was afraid you were getting dementia and he didn't know how to help. I felt so sorry for him. How many people did he call?" "I don't know, but he asked me to spread the word to the family. Said you needed support and intervention." My stomach turned. Daniel hadn't just lied. He'd recruited family members to become his flying monkeys, spreading his false narrative while positioning himself as the concerned, devoted son. I spent the next 4 hours on the phone calling everyone I could think of. Some believed me immediately. Others were skeptical. Hadn't Daniel sounded so worried, so genuine? A few were openly hostile, accusing me of abandoning my son in his time of need. Barbara from church was the worst. "Margaret, I've known you 30 years, and I have to say, cutting off your own child seems cruel. Family helps family. That's what we do. Even when that family only wants your money? You're being dramatic. Daniel loves you. He's just struggling, and instead of helping him, you're punishing him for some perceived slight about a wedding. Honestly, Margaret, I expected better from you." She hung up before I could respond. Ellen found me sitting in my kitchen, staring at my phone, feeling like the world had shifted on its axis. "They think I'm the bad guy," I said numbly. "Half my family thinks I'm senile, the other half thinks I'm cruel. Daniel is the victim, and I'm either the crazy mother or the heartless mother. How did this happen?" Ellen sat across from me, her expression sympathetic but not surprised. "It's called DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. Abusers use it all the time. Daniel denies the abuse, attacks your credibility, and reverses the roles so he's the victim and you're the abuser. But I have proof. Medical records, financial records, everything. Facts don't matter to people who want to believe the story. And Daniel's story is more comfortable. Devoted son trying to help his confused mother. Your story is uncomfortable. Son financially abusing his mother for years. Which would you rather believe if you were an outsider?" She was right, but it didn't make it hurt less. That evening, Howard called with news. "Chen filed the guardianship petition this afternoon. The hearing is scheduled for 3 weeks from now. He's also filed for emergency temporary guardianship, claiming you're in immediate danger of being exploited by, and I quote, unscrupulous individuals who have isolated her from loving family members." Meaning you and Ellen? "Primarily me. They're painting me as a predatory lawyer manipulating a vulnerable widow. That's insane. That's strategy. Margaret, this is going to get uglier before it gets better. Are you prepared for that? Was I? I thought about Richard, about what he'd say if he were here. "Take care of yourself, Maggie," he'd whispered. "Don't just exist. Live." I couldn't live if I let Daniel steal my autonomy, my resources, my dignity. "I'm prepared," I told Howard. "Do whatever it takes." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding. I looked at Daniel and Sarah's social media pages. Sarah had posted a heartfelt message. "Please keep my mother-in-law Margaret in your prayers." She's going through a difficult time with memory issues and confusion. Despite everything, we love her so much and just want to help her. Family is everything. The comments were full of sympathy for Sarah and Daniel. "You're such devoted children. She's lucky to have you. Elderly parents can be so difficult. Stay strong." My own son had weaponized social media against me, creating a public narrative of his devotion and my incompetence. But two could play that game. Margaret had stayed silent while Daniel controlled the narrative, but silence was costing her everything. What she did next would shock everyone who thought they knew her, but would it be enough? For 3 days, I gathered my evidence. Every bank statement showing transfers to Daniel, every text message begging for money, screenshots of the wedding photos I wasn't invited to, Dr. Foster's psychiatric evaluation confirming my complete cognitive competence, photos of my changed locks with the police report about the break-in attached. Ellen helped me organize everything into a clear, chronological story. Howard reviewed it for legal safety, and then, with hands that only trembled slightly, I posted it. Not a rant, not an emotional outburst, just facts, accompanied by documentation. For 4 years, I gave my son Daniel and his wife Sarah over $61,000. Rent, groceries, furniture, emergencies. I did this because I love my son and wanted to help them build their life together. 2 weeks ago, I discovered they got married without inviting me. When I asked why, Sarah told me they only invited important people. When I stopped the financial support, they broke into my home and tried to force me to sign over power of attorney. Now they're filing for guardianship, claiming I'm mentally incompetent. Here's my psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Elena Foster showing perfect cognitive function. Here are the bank records. Here's the police report. Make of this what you will. I posted it to Facebook, shared it to every family group chat, sent it directly to the relatives Daniel had contacted. Within an hour, my phone exploded. Victoria called first. "Maggie, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I should have questioned him harder. The documentation, you have everything. This is horrifying." My cousin James. "I feel like an idiot." He sounded so worried, so genuine. "I never thought to ask for your side." Barbara from church. "Margaret, I owe you an enormous apology." But there were other responses too. Sarah's mother sent me a furious message. "How dare you publicly humiliate my daughter? You're a bitter old woman who can't stand seeing young people happy. We'll see you in court." Daniel himself called, screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You've ruined us. Everyone knows now. Sarah is getting hate messages. Her job found out. You've destroyed our reputation." "Funny," I said coldly. "That's exactly what you tried to do to me. The difference is, everything I posted is true. This is elder abuse." "No, Daniel. What you did to me is elder abuse. What I did is self-defense. There's a difference." He hung up on me. Howard called next, his tone carefully neutral. "Margaret, I understand why you did that, but you've just escalated this situation significantly. They're going to come at you hard now." "Good. Let them come. At least now everyone knows the truth." That night, Ellen came over with wine and sympathy. "You've opened Pandora's box, you know, but sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes the monsters need to be seen in daylight." We sat in my living room, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange sense of peace. Not happiness, the situation was too painful for that, but peace, the peace of authenticity, of finally living in truth instead of comfortable lies. "Ellen, can I ask you something? When your daughter tried this with you, did you ever doubt yourself? Did you ever think maybe you were the problem?" "Every single day for the first 3 months," she admitted. "That's what they count on. They know we've been conditioned to put family first, to sacrifice, to always give one more chance. Breaking that conditioning feels like breaking your own heart." "It does," I whispered. "It really does." My phone buzzed with another message, this time from Daniel. "Mom, you've made your point. Can we please talk like adults? Sarah is crying. This public humiliation has cost us relationships, possibly her job. Whatever you want, we'll do it. Just take down the post." I showed it to Ellen. She read it and snorted. "Notice what's missing?" No apology. No acknowledgement of what they did. Just, "You've made your point," and demands that you fix the consequences of their own actions. She was right. Even now, Daniel couldn't accept responsibility. He was still trying to manipulate me, now with guilt about Sarah's tears and job instead of with threats about my mental health. I typed a response. "Daniel, I'll consider taking down the post when you publicly acknowledge the truth of what happened. Until then, my documentation stays public, just like your lies about my mental health did." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Margaret had fired a shot, heard around her family, but the war was just beginning. What happened when Daniel and Sarah realized public sympathy had shifted would change everything. The guardianship hearing was now 2 weeks away. Howard had been busy gathering our own witnesses, people who could testify to my mental competence and Daniel's true motivations. Dr. Foster would testify about my cognitive evaluation. Tom Anderson about my clear decision-making in hiring him for security. My banker, Michael Klein, about my careful financial management. Ellen about my rational behavior and healthy new friendships. But Daniel had witnesses too, and Howard had just received their list. "Margaret, we need to talk about who they're bringing," Howard said over coffee in his office. "Sarah will testify, obviously. Her mother, Patricia. Your neighbor across the street, Robert Davis. And they've found a psychiatrist willing to testify that your behavior shows signs of impaired judgment. Dr. Marcus Lehman." "Robert Davis? We barely speak. What could he possibly say?" "According to his deposition preview, he'll testify that you've been acting paranoid, installing excessive security, having frequent visits from strangers, shouting at family members in public. The security was necessary protection. The strangers are my friends, and the shouting was me defending my home from a break-in." "I know that, but context matters, and they'll present everything in the worst possible light. We need to discredit their witnesses and strengthen ours." Over the next week, Howard conducted what he called witness prep. He'd ask me questions the way Daniel's lawyer would, hostile, skeptical, designed to make me seem confused or angry. "Mrs. Foster, isn't it true you suddenly stopped recognizing your family obligations?" I recognized that I had been enabling unhealthy dependence, not fulfilling obligations. "Isn't it true you've become isolated from longtime friends?" "I've become more social than I've been in years. I've made new friends who respect me as a person, not an ATM. Isn't it true you're being influenced by a neighbor who has her own agenda?" Ellen shared her experience. "She didn't tell me what to do. I made my own choices based on my own judgment. Again and again, we practiced until I could stay calm, even when the questions were designed to provoke. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening. My Facebook post had gone viral beyond my small circle. It had been shared thousands of times, picked up by several blogs about elder abuse, and even mentioned in a local news article about financial exploitation of seniors. I received messages from strangers, dozens, then hundreds, people sharing their own stories of adult children who'd tried to control their finances, who'd weaponized guardianship laws, who'd spread lies about dementia, when the real problem was the parent establishing boundaries. One message particularly struck me. My mother went through exactly this 3 years ago. My brother tried to have her declared incompetent when she stopped funding his lifestyle. She won her case, but the legal battle destroyed her emotionally. Please stay strong. You're fighting for all of us who've watched this happen to people we love. I was part of a community I'd never wanted to join, elderly people fighting their own children for basic autonomy. Ellen introduced me to her support group, 5 other women who'd faced similar situations. We met at Carmen's house, a cheerful woman in her 70s with sharp eyes and sharper wit. "Welcome to the Tough Old Broads Club," Carmen said, handing me tea. "Population, way too many. Margaret, tell us your story." I told them everything. When I finished, they nodded with the grim recognition of people who'd walked this path. "My daughter," said Rita, a quiet woman with silver hair, "tried to have me committed to a nursing home so she could sell my house. Said I was a danger to myself. The real danger was her shopping addiction and my house equity. My son," added Carmen, "convinced half the family I had Alzheimer's, all because I refused to keep paying his gambling debts. The judge threw out his guardianship petition, but I lost 2 years of my life to that fight." These women understood. They'd survived, and they were showing me I could too. But the night before our final witness prep session, Howard called with concerning news. "Margaret, I need to warn you about something. Dr. Lehman, their psychiatrist, is expensive and effective. He specializes in testifying for families seeking guardianship. His reports are very creative in interpreting normal behavior as signs of decline." Can he really claim I'm incompetent when I have Dr. Foster's evaluation saying the opposite? He'll argue that your sudden personality change indicates possible early-stage dementia, that your paranoid installation of security and cutting off family shows impaired reasoning, that your uncharacteristic confrontational behavior suggests frontal lobe issues. It's all nonsense, but it sounds medical and scary. So we have 2 psychiatrists saying opposite things. How does a judge decide? By looking at everything else. Your actual behavior, your financial records, testimony from people who know you. That's why our witnesses are so important. We need people who can testify that you're not just competent, but more competent than before, that you've actually improved since escaping Daniel's manipulation. The next morning, Tom Anderson came to Howard's office to prep his testimony. He was nervous, uncomfortable in his work clothes among the lawyers and their suits. "Tom," Howard said gently, "I just need you to tell the truth about your interactions with Margaret. When she hired you to change locks and install security, how did she seem?" "Clearer than I'd seen her in years," Tom said honestly. "When Richard died, Margaret kind of diminished. She was always rushing, always worried about Daniel. Last month when she came in, she was different, focused, made decisions quickly, knew exactly what she needed. She wasn't scattered, she was determined." "Did she seem confused or paranoid?" "Hell no, she seemed smart, like someone protecting themselves from a real threat, not imagining one." "Perfect testimony," Howard said after Tom left. "He's credible, has known you for decades, and has no financial interest in the outcome." My banker, Michael Klein, was next. His testimony would be crucial. "Mrs. Foster has managed her finances impeccably," he said during prep. "Every payment is documented, every decision is sound. When she canceled the automatic transfers, she did it calmly and rationally, explaining exactly why. Nothing about her behavior suggested confusion." "What about Daniel's claim that she forgot to transfer rent money?" Howard asked. "She didn't forget. She made a conscious choice. There's a difference. I've seen actual dementia patients managing accounts. They forget passwords, repeat the same questions, get confused about basic transactions. Mrs. Foster did none of that." As each witness prepared, I felt more confident. We had evidence. We had credible testimony. We had the truth. But I also knew Daniel had something powerful too, the cultural expectation that mothers should sacrifice endlessly for their children, and that refusing to do so was somehow unnatural, possibly even insane. Margaret had assembled her army of truth-tellers, but would a judge believe that a mother refusing to fund her adult son was wisdom rather than madness? The courtroom would soon reveal the answer. I woke at 5 a.m. on the day of the hearing, my stomach a knot of anxiety and determination. I dressed carefully, a navy blue suit that Richard had always said made me look professional and dignified. Pearl earrings, sensible heels, minimal makeup. I wanted to look like what I was, a competent 71-year-old woman defending her right to live free. Ellen drove me to the courthouse. Howard met us at 8:30 a.m. outside Judge Patricia Thornton's courtroom. "Judge Thornton is fair but traditional," Howard briefed me one last time. "She'll want to see evidence of cognitive function, but she'll also be sympathetic to family dynamics. Stay calm, answer honestly, and don't let them provoke you into anger." At 9 a.m., we entered the courtroom. It was smaller than I'd imagined, paneled in dark wood with fluorescent lights that made everything feel surreal. Daniel and Sarah sat across the aisle with Gregory Chen and Dr. Lehman. Sarah wore a modest black dress and pearls, trying to look like the devoted, respectable daughter-in-law. Daniel wore a suit I'd helped pay for. Neither of them looked at me. Judge Thornton entered, a woman in her early 60s with gray hair pulled back severely and eyes that missed nothing. "We're here on the matter of Daniel Foster versus Margaret Foster. Petition for guardianship based on alleged cognitive impairment. Mr. Chen, you may proceed." Chen's opening statement was a masterpiece of manipulation. He painted me as a once loving mother who deteriorated rapidly, becoming paranoid, hostile, and financially irresponsible. He called my decision to stop funding Daniel abandonment of family duty, and my security measures evidence of delusional thinking. He suggested my new friendships were potentially exploitative, and my decision to hire Howard showed how vulnerable she'd become to outside influence. Then he called his first witness, Sarah. Sarah took the stand with tears already glistening in her eyes. Under Chen's gentle questioning, she described a Margaret Foster I didn't recognize. Confused, forgetful, irrationally angry, increasingly isolated. "Can you give us an example of this concerning behavior?" Chen asked. Well, she forgot to transfer our rent money multiple times. When I'd remind her, she'd get angry and defensive. She started accusing us of using her, which was heartbreaking because we love her so much. Then she installed all these security cameras and changed her locks without telling us, even though we'd had keys for years to help her if she had emergencies. How did Mrs. Foster's behavior toward you change? She went from being this warm, generous person to being cold and hostile. She stopped returning our calls. When we tried to visit to check on her well-being, she threatened to call the police on us, her own family. It's like she became a different person almost overnight. Howard's cross-examination was surgical. Mrs. Foster, when exactly did Margaret allegedly forget the rent transfers? Several times over the past months. Can you provide specific dates? Sarah faltered. I don't remember exactly. Is it possible she didn't forget but rather chose to stop paying? She never said that. She just stopped. When you say you visited to check on her well-being, is it true you entered her home without permission after she'd asked you to leave? We had keys. We were worried. That's not what I asked. Did you have her permission that day to enter her home? Not explicitly, but yes or no, Mrs. Foster? No. So you broke into her home, brought an attorney she'd never met, and tried to get her to sign financial documents giving your husband control of her accounts. We were trying to help her. By taking control of her money? Chen objected. Judge Thornton sustained it, but the damage was done. Daniel's testimony was next. He played the devoted son perfectly, voice breaking, eyes red, words carefully chosen. I don't understand what happened to my mother, he said. She raised me to believe family takes care of family. For years, she insisted on helping us, said it made her happy. Then suddenly, without explanation, she cut us off completely. Won't answer calls, won't see us, acts like we're criminals instead of her family. How has this impacted you? Chen asked. We might lose our apartment. Sarah's been crying every night. But more than that, I've lost my mother. The woman who raised me wouldn't recognize this angry, paranoid person she's become. Again, Howard's cross-examination exposed the truth beneath the performance. Mr. Foster, in the 4 years prior to your mother stopping financial support, how many times did you visit her without needing or asking for money? Long pause. I'm not sure. Take your time. Think carefully. Another pause. I don't know the exact number. Is it more than 10 times? Probably not. More than 5? I don't think so. More than 0? Daniel's face reddened. We had busy lives. That's not an answer. In 4 years, did you ever visit your mother purely to spend time with her, with no financial component to the visit? I don't remember. You don't remember a single visit where you didn't ask for or receive money? Silence. Let me ask differently. When you got married, why didn't you invite your mother? It was a small ceremony. How many people attended? About 30. So 30 people were important enough to invite, but your mother, who had given you over $61,000, wasn't? That's not fair. What's not fair, Mr. Foster? Daniel couldn't answer without either admitting he'd excluded me cruelly or lying under oath. Daniel's mask was cracking on the witness stand, but Chen still had his secret weapon. Dr. Lehman, the psychiatrist who specialized in making normal behavior sound like dementia. Could Howard dismantle his testimony too? The Price of Love, A Mother's Journey to Freedom. Part 1. The Uninvited Guest. The morning light filtered through my kitchen window as I reached for the phone, my heart full of anticipation. Today I would finally ask Daniel about his wedding date, my only son getting married. I'd been waiting weeks for this conversation, already imagining myself in the beautiful lavender dress hanging in my closet, the one I'd spent 3 weeks searching for. But before I could dial, Sarah, my daughter-in-law, caught my eye from across the room. Her smile was sharp, calculated, like broken glass reflecting sunlight. Actually, Margaret, she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness, we got married 2 days ago. It was very exclusive, only the most important people in our lives. The word struck me like a physical blow. Important people. For 4 years, I had been their safety net. Every month, without fail, I transferred $600 for their rent. When their apartment needed furnishing, I bought every piece. The couch, the dining table, the bedroom set. When their refrigerator stood empty, I filled it. When Sarah's car broke down, I paid the $1,800 repair bill without hesitation. 4 years of sacrifice. 4 years of believing I was investing in family. 4 years of being their financial lifeline. And I wasn't important enough for their wedding. I stood frozen in my own living room, the phone feeling like lead in my hand. Daniel wouldn't meet my eyes, suddenly fascinated by his shoes, the Italian leather ones I'd given him for his birthday. Sarah settled comfortably onto the sofa I'd purchased, crossing her legs with the confidence of someone who'd just delivered a perfectly aimed insult. The pale lavender dress mocked me from my closet. $230 I'd spent, imagining myself in wedding photos that would never include me. The matching shoes sat beside it, unworn, unnecessary. For 2 months I'd been planning, setting aside $1,200 as their wedding gift, calling my sister Victoria in Seattle to share the excitement, deep cleaning my house thinking they might celebrate here afterward. All of it meant nothing. It was intimate, Daniel finally managed, his voice rehearsed and hollow, just us and the legal witnesses. Very simple, but I knew better. I'd seen the photos on social media, the ones they hadn't bothered to hide from me. Sarah's parents beaming beside the newlyweds, her 3 siblings raising champagne glasses, her best friend in a bridesmaid dress, Sarah herself in a flowing white gown, the one funded by the $900 I'd given her for personal expenses the previous month. I saw everything I was never meant to see. What would you do if the people you sacrificed everything for treated you like a stranger? Could you find the strength to say enough is enough? Part 2. The call for help, 7 days. That's how long it took for them to remember I existed. 7 days of silence after the humiliation. 7 days of me replaying that moment over and over. Only the most important people. While I tried to understand how I'd become so invisible to my own child. Then my phone rang with Sarah's number, and instantly I knew. This wasn't a call to apologize. This wasn't my son finally finding the courage to explain. This was need. This was always about need. Margaret. Sarah's voice trembled with manufactured urgency. We have a serious problem. The landlord is threatening eviction. The rent is 3 weeks overdue. You forgot to make the transfer, and now he says if we don't pay by Friday, we're out on the street. Forgot. As if my absence was merely an oversight, a simple mistake to be corrected. I let the silence stretch between us, remembering all those frantic trips to the bank. All those times I'd rearranged my own bills to make sure theirs were covered. All those meals of instant noodles and canned soup so I could give them money for restaurants and entertainment. Margaret, are you there? This is urgent. We could lose everything. Sarah, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I didn't forget. I made a conscious choice. What? What are you talking about? I only help people who consider me important. You made it very clear I don't qualify. The silence that followed was profound. For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't the one desperately trying to fill the quiet with reassurances and promises of help. Margaret, you're being unreasonable, she finally stammered. I don't understand. We've always been important to you. I've always treated you like my own mother. The lie was so blatant, so rehearsed, it almost made me laugh. A bitter, painful laugh that I kept locked inside. When? I asked simply. When did you treat me like family? When you excluded me from your wedding? When you only call when you need money? When was the last time you asked how I was doing, Sarah? Not what I could do for you, just how I was. That's not fair. Reverse victim and offender. Chen tried to discredit her on cross-examination, but Dr. Foster was unshakable. She had data, testing results, clinical observations. Layman had speculation based on hearsay. Next came my character witnesses. Michael Klein testified about my financial competence. Tom Anderson about my clear decision-making. Ellen about my rationality and improved well-being since establishing boundaries. Then Howard called a surprise witness I hadn't expected, Barbara from church. Barbara looked uncomfortable but determined. "I owe Margaret an apology," she said under oath. "When Daniel first called me, I believed his story without question. I accused Margaret of being cruel. But then I saw her Facebook post with all the documentation. I saw the bank records, the police report, the psychiatric evaluation. I realized Daniel had lied to me, used me to spread false information about his mother's mental state. That's not the behavior of a concerned son. That's the behavior of someone trying to manipulate the narrative." "What's your opinion of Mrs. Foster's mental capacity now?" Howard asked. "She's clearer and stronger than I've seen her in years." I'm ashamed I didn't trust her immediately. She's not confused. She's finally free. The testimony had revealed the truth, but would Judge Thornton see through Daniel's manipulation? Margaret's fate and her freedom hung on one woman's decision. Judge Thornton called for a brief recess after all testimony concluded. Howard, Ellen, and I sat in the hallway outside the courtroom, none of us speaking. Across the corridor, Daniel, Sarah, and Chen huddled in urgent conversation. 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Finally, the bailiff called us back in. Judge Thornton looked at her notes, then directly at me. Her expression was unreadable. "This is one of the more disturbing cases I've encountered," she began. My heart sank. Disturbing? Did that mean she believed Daniel? "What disturbs me," the judge continued, "is the blatant attempt to weaponize the guardianship system against a competent adult who simply refused to continue funding her adult child's lifestyle." Daniel's face went pale. "I've reviewed all the evidence presented." Dr. Lehman's testimony was speculative at best, professionally irresponsible at worst, diagnosing dementia in someone he never met based solely on information from financially interested parties. By contrast, Dr. Foster conducted actual clinical testing and found Mrs. Foster not just competent, but cognitively excellent. Judge Thornton looked directly at Daniel and Sarah. The behaviors characterized as concerning by the petitioners, installing security, establishing financial boundaries, making new friends, are not symptoms of cognitive decline. They are the actions of a rational person protecting herself from exploitation. The evidence shows Mrs. Foster gave you over $61,000 in 4 years, was excluded from your wedding with calculated cruelty, and was then subjected to breaking and entering when she exercised her right to stop funding you. Sarah started crying, but these were tears of fear, not manipulation. Furthermore, Judge Thornton's voice turned cold, the evidence suggests this guardianship petition is itself a form of elder abuse, an attempt to legally seize control of Mrs. Foster's assets after voluntary manipulation failed. This court finds no evidence of cognitive impairment. The petition for guardianship is denied. Relief flooded through me so intensely I thought I might faint. However, the judge wasn't finished. I'm taking an additional step. Given the attempted break-in, the harassment, and this legal action, I'm granting Mrs. Foster a restraining order. Mr. and Mrs. Foster, you are to have no contact with Margaret Foster except through legal counsel. You are not to approach her home, her bank, or any place she frequents. Violation will result in arrest. Daniel stood up, his voice breaking. "Your Honor, she's my mother." "She's a person with rights, Mr. Foster. Rights you've consistently violated. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel struck and it was over. In the hallway, Daniel tried to approach me. 2 court officers immediately stepped between us, enforcing the restraining order that wasn't even officially filed yet. "Mom, please," Daniel called over their shoulders. "Don't do this." "We can fix this. I'm sorry." "You had years to be sorry," I said quietly. "You chose to file for guardianship instead. You made your choice, Daniel. Now live with it." Howard guided me outside where Ellen was waiting. Victoria had flown in that morning and was there too, pulling me into a fierce hug. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. "So damn proud." That night, Ellen hosted a victory celebration at her house. The Tough Old Broads Club was there, Carmen, Rita, and the others. Barbara came too, still apologetic. Even Tom Anderson stopped by with flowers. To Margaret, Carmen raised her glass, who reminded us all that protecting yourself isn't selfishness, it's survival. We toasted, we laughed, we cried a little. For the first time in 4 years, I felt light, free, mine again. But later, alone in my bedroom, I looked at a photo of Daniel as a child, maybe 7 years old, gap-toothed smile, hugging me tight. I mourned that boy. I mourned the man I'd hoped he'd become. I mourned the relationship we'd never have. But I didn't regret my choice. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You destroyed our lives. We'll lose everything because of you. I hope you're happy. I blocked the number without responding. Howard had warned me they might try to violate the restraining order through new phones. I'd forward it to him in the morning. Instead, I opened my laptop and did something I'd been planning for weeks. I looked at travel websites, Italy, Greece, Ireland, places Richard and I had always planned to visit but postponed, places I'd sacrificed to keep Daniel comfortable. Not anymore. I booked a 3-week tour of Ireland, leaving in 2 months. First-class accommodations, guided tours, the works. It cost $6,000, exactly what I used to give Daniel and Sarah in 3 months of support. This time, I was investing in myself. Margaret had won her freedom, but freedom came with a price, the final permanent loss of her son. Could she build a new life from the ashes of her old one? What happened next surprised everyone, including Margaret herself. The first week after the hearing was surreal. I kept expecting my phone to ring with Daniel's number, kept anticipating the familiar anxiety of wondering what financial crisis he'd manufactured this time. But there was only silence, enforced by court order, but silence nonetheless. The silence was both freedom and grief. Victoria stayed for a few days, helping me sort through years of accumulated emotional baggage. Literally, we went through my house, removing traces of my old life as Daniel's ATM. The bedroom I'd kept as a shrine to his childhood. Victoria helped me transform it into an art studio. We packed up his baseball trophies, his posters, his childhood books. Some went to charity, some to storage. He's not dead, Maggie, Victoria said gently as I hesitated over a photo album. But that version of your relationship is. It's okay to grieve that. We created something new in that room, an easel by the window, shelves for paint supplies, good lighting, a space that was mine, for my dreams, not his memories. The story of my court victory spread. Local news picked it up. 71-year-old woman defeats son's guardianship attempt, exposes elder financial abuse. The article was fair, factual, devastating to Daniel and Sarah's reputation. I received letters. Dozens, then hundreds. One from an 80-year-old woman in Ohio. My daughter tried the same thing last year. Your story gave me courage to fight back. Thank you. One from a 45-year-old man. I'm ashamed to say I was like your son. Your case made me realize what I was doing to my mother. I've apologized and started therapy. Thank you for the wake-up call. One from a social worker. I work in elder services. Your case is being used in training now as an example of financial exploitation. You've helped more people than you know. But there were also hate messages. People who believed family should always come first, that I should have forgiven Daniel, that airing family problems publicly was shameful. You're a terrible mother. No wonder your son needed money. You probably made him feel worthless his whole life. Family is forever. You chose money over your own child. Disgusting. My mother would never abandon me like this. You're cold-hearted. Those hurt, but less than they would have before. I'd learned that people who hadn't lived through exploitation couldn't understand the necessity of escape. Ellen helped me install better social media privacy settings and filter messages. You can't control what people think, Margaret. You can only control how much access they have to your peace. 2 weeks after the hearing, something unexpected happened. A young woman appeared at my door, mid-20s, nervous, clutching her phone. Mrs. Foster? My name is Jennifer Chen. I'm Gregory Chen's daughter. I almost closed the door, but something in her expression stopped me. Fear mixed with determination. I saw your case file on my father's desk. I read everything. Mrs. Foster, I need to tell you something. My father has done this before, multiple times. He specializes in helping adult children get guardianship over parents who won't fund them anymore. It's his niche practice. He makes millions. My stomach turned. Why are you telling me this? Because what he does is legal, but evil. He coaches clients on how to present normal behavior as dementia symptoms. He finds psychiatrists like Dr. Lehman who will diagnose anyone, sight unseen, for the right fee. He's destroyed families, stolen people's autonomy, all for billable hours. Can you testify to this? She looked terrified. He's my father. He'd disown me. But I documented everything. Cases, strategies, communications. I can't live with this anymore. What do you want me to do? There's a state bar investigation starting into elder abuse facilitators. Your case caught their attention. If they contact you, please push them to look deeper. My father isn't the only lawyer doing this, but he's one of the worst. She handed me a flash drive. Everything's here. I'm sorry for what he did to you. Not all of us think what he does is acceptable, even if it's technically legal. After she left, I called Howard. Within a week, the state bar had opened a formal investigation into Gregory Chen's practice patterns. I didn't do it for revenge. I did it so the next Margaret facing a Gregory Chen might have a better chance. Meanwhile, my departure for Ireland approached. I shopped for travel clothes, bought new luggage, planned my itinerary with the excitement of a teenager. Ellen joked that I was getting younger before her eyes. You know what the best part is? I told her over coffee one morning. I'm not planning this around anyone else's schedule or needs. I'm not wondering if I can afford it after helping Daniel. I'm not feeling guilty for spending money on myself. I'm just free. How does freedom feel? Terrifying and wonderful in equal measure. 3 days before my Ireland trip, I received a registered letter. Inside was a handwritten note from Sarah's mother, Patricia. Margaret, I owe you an apology I'll never be able to fully make. When Sarah told me her version of events, I believed her without question. I called you terrible names. I supported their guardianship attempt. After the hearing, I reviewed the documentation you provided. I saw the bank records, the police report, everything. I realized my daughter had been lying to me for years about your relationship, about the money, about everything. I confronted Sarah. She admitted the truth, that you'd been funding their entire lifestyle, that they'd deliberately excluded you from the wedding as payback for some perceived slight, that the guardianship was about money, not concern. I'm horrified. I raised her better than this, or at least I thought I did. She and Daniel are facing eviction now, as you probably know. Part of me wants to help them. But after seeing what they did to you, I can't reward that behavior. I hope you can forgive me for my part in their cruelty. You deserved better from all of us. Patricia Hammond. I read it 3 times. An apology from Sarah's mother, something I'd never expected. It didn't undo the damage, but it acknowledged the truth. That meant something. I wrote back, Patricia, thank you for your letter. I forgive you. You acted on false information from someone you trusted. That's understandable. I hope Daniel and Sarah find their way, but they need to do it without my money enabling them. Perhaps struggle will teach them what comfort never could. I'm traveling to Ireland next week. For myself, something I should have done years ago. Margaret was discovering that freedom had ripples, some expected, some surprising. But the biggest surprise was still coming, and it would arrive from the last person she expected. I was packing for Ireland when Ellen knocked on my door holding an envelope. This came to my house by mistake, she said, handing it to me. The postal carrier mixed up the addresses. The return address made my heart stop. Daniel Foster. Do you want me to stay while you read it? Ellen asked gently. Please. We sat on my couch, and I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a handwritten letter, 3 pages long. Daniel's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need to tell you the truth, even if it's too late. We lost the apartment. We're staying with Sarah's aunt in a 1-bedroom in the bad part of town. Sarah's working 2 jobs. I finally got hired at a warehouse after 3 months of searching. Turns out the important job I always told you about never actually existed. I'd been unemployed for 2 years, lying to you about it so you wouldn't worry or stop helping. Losing everything was the best thing that could have happened to me. I know that sounds crazy. We're broke, exhausted. Our marriage is hanging by a thread. But for the first time in my adult life, I'm actually working. Actually providing for myself. Actually feeling like a man instead of a child pretending to be one. The guardianship thing. Mom, I can't even write how ashamed I am. It was Sarah's idea initially, but I went along with it. Worse, I embraced it. I convinced myself you were the problem, that you'd changed, that we deserved your money because we were family. The truth is, I changed. Or maybe I never grew up. Dad died when I was 16, and you became everything. Mother, father, provider, supporter. You made everything so easy that I never learned to be hard. I never learned to struggle, to fail, to pick myself up. When Sarah said we should only invite important people to the wedding, I should have stopped her. I should have told her you were the most important person. Instead, I let her say it because some sick part of me enjoyed finally having power over you. Finally being the one who could reject instead of always being the one asking for help. That's evil, Mom. There's no other word for it. Evil and pathetic. I saw your Facebook post. I saw everyone turn against us. And you know what? We deserved it. Every bit of it. You didn't destroy our reputation. You told the truth. We destroyed it ourselves. Sarah and I are in counseling now, not to get back together necessarily, but to figure out how we became people who would try to steal from someone who loved us. The therapist asked me last week, "When's the last time you called your mother just to tell her you love her?" I couldn't remember a single time. Not one. I don't know if I loved you, Mom, or if I just loved what you could do for me. That's the question that keeps me up at night. How do I not know? How did I become someone who doesn't know if he loves his own mother? I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness or reconciliation. The restraining order is in place and I won't violate it. I'm writing because you deserve to know that you were right about everything, and I was wrong about everything. I hope you're happy. Really happy, not just managing or surviving. I hope you travel and paint and laugh with friends who actually care about you. I hope you spend every dollar you earned on yourself and never feel guilty. And I hope someday, maybe years from now, I'll become someone worthy of being your son again. But I'm not that person yet. I'm sorry doesn't cover it. But I'm sorry anyway. Daniel. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Ellen sat beside me, holding my hand, saying nothing. "Do you think he means it?" I finally asked. "Does it matter? I mean, for you, does it matter?" I thought about that. I think I needed to hear it, but it doesn't change anything. Not yet. "It's a start, though," Ellen said. "Not a reconciliation, but an acknowledgement. That's more than most people in your situation ever get." I folded the letter carefully and put it in my desk drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday Daniel would actually become the man he claimed he wanted to be. But that was someday, and someday was a long way off. Right now, I had a plane to catch. Daniel's letter had cracked open a door Margaret thought was sealed forever. But was remorse enough? And could a mother's heart, once broken, ever truly heal? Margaret was about to find out that the hardest part of freedom is deciding what to do with it. The plane lifted off from Seattle, and I watched America shrink beneath me. Beside me, an empty seat I'd paid for myself. Behind me, a life I'd reconstructed from ruins. Ahead of me, 3 weeks of complete independence. Ireland was breathtaking. Rolling green hills, ancient castles, pubs filled with music and laughter. Our tour group was small, 12 people, mostly solo travelers in their 60s and 70s. People who decided life was too short to wait for someone else to travel with them. I made friends immediately. Catherine from Boston, recently widowed. James from Toronto, divorced and rediscovering himself. Maria from San Diego, who'd survived breast cancer and decided to see the world. We bonded over shared meals and bus rides between towns. They asked about my life, and I told them. Not the sanitized version, but the real story. The exploitation, the court battle, the letter from Daniel. Good for you, Catherine said fiercely. My daughter tried something similar after my husband died. Wanted me to sell the house and move into her spare bedroom so she could take care of me, which really meant control my finances. I told her absolutely not, and we didn't speak for a year. Best decision I ever made. How is your relationship now? I asked. Better. She realized she couldn't manipulate me, so she had to actually build a relationship instead. It's not perfect, but it's real. In a pub in Galway, Maria asked the question I'd been avoiding. Margaret, what will you do about Daniel? Will you respond to his letter? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to. Part of me thinks any response just opens the door to more manipulation. Can I tell you what I learned from cancer? Maria said. Life's too short for bitterness, but it's also too short for fake reconciliation. If you let him back in, it has to be on terms that protect you. Not 50-50 compromise. Your terms, your boundaries, your timeline. What if he's really changed? Then he'll prove it through years of consistent behavior, not through one letter. Anyone can write a nice letter when they're desperate. Change is proven through time. We visited the cliffs of Moher, and I stood at the edge looking out at the Atlantic Ocean, feeling incredibly small and impossibly free. The wind whipped around me, and I thought about how far I'd come. A year ago, I'd been trapped in a cycle of giving and disappointment. 6 months ago, I'd been fighting for my basic rights. Now I was standing on the edge of Ireland watching waves crash hundreds of feet below, completely in control of my own life. I took a photo and posted it to Facebook with a caption, "Sometimes you have to lose everything to find yourself." Ireland Day 7, living my best life. The comments poured in, supportive messages from friends and strangers, a few critical ones from people who thought I should forgive Daniel, and one that caught my attention. Mrs. Foster, this is Jennifer Chen, Gregory's daughter. I wanted you to know, the state bar suspended my father's license pending investigation. 3 other families came forward with similar stories after yours. You started something important. Thank you. I showed the comment to Catherine and Maria. You didn't just save yourself, Catherine said. You saved other people too. That matters. In Dublin, our last stop, I did something impulsive. I walked into a tattoo parlor, something I'd never imagined doing at 71 years old. What can I do for you? The young artist asked, barely hiding his surprise at my age. I want something small, the word free with a bird. Any particular bird? Something that flies alone. He designed it while I waited. Elegant script with a simple falcon in flight. He placed it on my inner wrist where I could see it every day. Most people your age get tattoos of grandkids' names, he said while working. I'm not most people, I replied. The tattoo hurt more than I expected, but I welcomed the pain. It was my choice, my pain, my mark of independence. That night, our tour group had a farewell dinner. We'd become close over 3 weeks, sharing stories and supporting each other through the small dramas that arise when strangers travel together. James stood to make a toast, to new friends and new chapters. We all came to Ireland alone, but we're leaving connected. Here's to the courage it takes to start over. In years, genuine belonging without obligation. These people knew my story and valued me anyway. They didn't want anything from me except company and conversation. When I returned home, Ellen picked me up from the airport. You look different, she said immediately. I got a tattoo. You what? Ellen nearly drove off the road. Show me. I showed her my wrist. Margaret Foster, you rebel. She laughed. I love it. At home, I found my mailbox stuffed with 3 weeks of accumulated mail, bills, junk mail, postcards from Victoria, and another envelope in Daniel's handwriting. For 2 weeks, Daniel's second letter sat unopened on my kitchen counter. Every morning I'd see it while making coffee, every evening while making dinner. It became part of the landscape, a decision postponed. Ellen noticed, of course. You don't have to read it, you know. You can throw it away. I know, but not reading it feels like fear. Reading it feels like weakness. I'm stuck between the two. There's a third option. Read it when you're ready, on your timeline, with support around you. That's neither fear nor weakness. That's just wisdom. So I decided to wait until I felt truly ready, not pressured by guilt or curiosity. Meanwhile, my new life continued to unfold. I joined Ellen's book club, started volunteering at the senior center teaching art classes, using skills I'd abandoned decades ago, accepted a position on the board of the Elder Protection Alliance, an organization fighting financial abuse. At my first board meeting, I met Robert Chen, no relation to Gregory, who'd founded the organization after his mother lost her life savings to a predatory guardianship. "Margaret," he said after hearing my story, "would you consider speaking publicly? Your case got media attention. People trust you. We're trying to pass legislation to reform guardianship laws, and survivor stories are crucial. Public speaking terrifies me. Most important things do. Think about it." I did think about it. For days, I wrestled with the idea of making my pain even more public than it already was. But I kept thinking about Jennifer Chen's comment. Other families had come forward after mine. What if my voice could prevent another Margaret from being exploited? I agreed to speak at a state legislative hearing on guardianship reform. The date was set for 6 weeks out, giving me time to prepare and panic. Ellen helped me write my testimony. We kept it factual, emotional but not bitter, focused on systemic problems rather than personal grievances. "You're not just telling your story," Ellen coached me. "You're representing everyone who couldn't fight back, everyone who lost, everyone still trapped. That's bigger than Daniel, bigger than you." 3 weeks before the hearing, I finally opened Daniel's second letter. "Mom, I know I don't have the right to keep writing to you. I know the restraining order exists for good reason, but I'm sending these letters anyway, hoping someday you might read them. Things are still hard. We're still living with Sarah's aunt. The marriage probably won't survive. We're too broken, too much damage. But I'm working every day paying my own bills for the first time in years. Last week, I paid rent. My rent, money I earned. It sounds stupid, but I cried. I'm 37 years old and I cried because I paid rent like an actual adult. How pathetic is that? I've been thinking about Dad a lot, remembering how hard he worked, how proud he was to provide for us. He would be ashamed of what I became. I'm ashamed of what I became. I started writing down memories of him, things I'd forgotten or ignored, like how he'd come home exhausted from the factory, but still help me with homework, how he saved for months to buy you that pearl necklace you loved, how he always said, "A man takes care of his responsibilities." I wasn't a man, Mom. I was a child in a man's body demanding my mother take care of me. I'm in therapy now, real therapy, not just marriage counseling. Dr. Patterson is helping me understand how I got here, not to excuse it, but to change it. We talk about enabling and entitlement and what healthy relationships actually look like. He asked me to write you a letter listing everything I took from you, not just money, but time, peace, dignity. I did. It was 17 pages long. I'm not sending it because it would be cruel, making you relive all of that. But writing it showed me the scope of what I did. I stole years from you, Mom. Years you could have spent living instead of funding my fake life. I don't know how to make that right. I don't know if I can. But I'm trying to become someone who wouldn't do that to anyone ever again. I hope you're still traveling, still painting, still free. This letter felt different from the first. Less desperate, more reflective. But was it real growth or just better manipulation? I called Howard. Can I respond to Daniel without violating the restraining order or opening myself up to legal problems? Legally, you can communicate through me. Any direct contact has to come from you, not him. Why? Are you thinking about responding? I don't know. Maybe. He sounds different in this letter. Margaret, be careful. Abusers often sound remorseful after consequences hit. The question isn't whether he's sorry now, it's whether he'll be different 5 years from now. How do I know?